Welcome, this is Kimberly Neighbors at DDS, and this webinar is going to cover the changes to the rollover rollback process. We've modified the program in several places. The first and most notable difference will be that you no longer have to input the dates for the processes. Instead, you will read the dates that are given on the screen and verify that that is true. If it is incorrect, then please contact AST immediately, as there may be some type of configuration problem with your system. So let's go ahead and begin. I'm going to start with the preliminary rollback process, and this will be the first spot that you notice a change. You're going to be given your dates for the year. So this is going to create your working file for your new authorizations. The current fiscal year end date is 6/30/16. The fiscal year of the authorizations to be processed is 16, and the new fiscal year to be processed is 17. In this instance, if this is correct, you would respond yes. Be aware that if you make any response other than yes, then it will just exit you from the menu and the process will not run. So I'm going to go ahead and type yes here. And I'll take just a second, and we're going to do our normal responses, the same questions. Nothing has changed with this. And we'll give that a minute. Okay, so the process has been running, and at this point I've gotten the program message. This particular one is in reference to the report PS02501. Most reports, in order to prevent generating a lot of pages to print, may give you this error message. Go ahead and do send this to AST, but for the most part we pretty much know that these are going to be no max responses, and basically that's just telling that it to ignore the page limits that have been set on reports. Alright, so I finished preliminary authorization rollover. The next step would be creating the rate table for the new year. Again, we've modified the dates for the process, and you'll see that here. Remember, when you first run this, it asks you, do you want to create the rate table for the new fiscal year? I'm going to say yes. And now it's saying that the fiscal year is 17, and is this correct, yes or no? Again, if you respond anything other than yes, it will just exit you from the process. This is an opportunity to delete your D status records in your rate table. You can, oops, wait, that's not what this is. This is changing your end dates. So if you only want to change the end dates that end in 6/30, and create new rates for 6/30/17, you would say yes. If you wanted to create rates for all of your rate table, then you would say no. I'm going to go ahead and say just for 17 and F3, and here's your process of what do you want to delete the D status records. It's up to you at this point if you want to do this. You can do the D status with the purge functions, which you should be doing either before or after rollback. Alright, so now we're going to move on to the final rollover process. Again, the only thing that has changed with this functionality is the dates that you are presented for. I will note that this is the final run and confirm the time period. And just respond to your reports. So while this process is running, I'm going to go and refer you back to the Rollover Express manual. We've updated the manual to reflect the changes, and also we've added certain more noticeable pages that tell you to stop and to read before you continue. We've identified the key points that you should be creating backups. And this is one of them. You should do a backup of the 3 libraries for UFIS before you run final rollover in case there are any issues after the process has run. The other thing that's important is we have identified a new way to um, prevent you from having to shut down the e-billing website altogether, and this is called the stop transfer pump process. There was a recent technical bulletin that covered this, and you should review it as well in order to determine what you need to do. Basically, it's an email to AST and letting us know that you're about to begin the final rollover process, and we stop the transferring of information between eBilling and UFIS. And then this gives you your clean backups that you'll need for if for some reason we have to restore. Again, I've got my report message. This one is for report PSO2601. I'm going to go ahead and say no max, and it's going to continue the process. If you have any questions about when to shut down the e-billing website and your questions are not answered by the technical bulletin, please do go ahead and email us at AST, and we will be happy to assist you. Alright, so we finished the final rollover process, and I do want to point out one more change. Final rollover can only be run once, and so we have built in a message that if you do attempt to process the final rollover again, you will see an error saying it's already been completed and the date that you completed it on. Okay, so now at this point, once you've run final rollover, you're considered in what is called the window period. Those of you that run your final rollover and your rollback within a couple of days of each other typically don't have any issues with this window period. For those that have a more spread out time period from when final rollover is run, be aware that you do have some session dates and menus that you need to pay attention to, and the information for the window period is on page 8 and 9 of the manual. I do want to make a note on page 9 towards the bottom, because the way the dates are setting up for this year in 2016, some of you may be running rollback a little bit later in July than you typically would. In this instance, you really need to pay attention to your session dates and the processes that you are running during the month of July. So please do go back and read the information on when you need to change your session date for certain processes on page 9 of the manual. So once you've done all your processing that you need to do, we're on to page 11 and 12 of the manual. And again, you'll notice that on page 11 we say stop before you continue. Do a backup at this point. You're getting ready to run preliminary rollback and creating your year-end closing entries. So if there are any issues with this process, then we want to be sure that we have a clean backup to go to if we do have to, if there are problems and we do have to restore. Okay, so the first steps in the preliminary rollback create year-end closing entries are basically just making sure that you have done, the processes in the beginning. If you'd followed along with the manual and are using a checkoff sheet, then you should have this information there for you. Do be sure that your final state claim has been run before you begin this process. We didn't change anything with the reports that are run, so I'm not going to run the trial balance and those functions 6 and 7. I will go ahead and run the year-end closing journal entries. This is another area that we modified in the program, and basically went ahead and hard-coded the general fund account, as there's no reason for you guys to have to input this number. This will be the number that all RCs should be using. We're going to continue. Again, it's pulled the fiscal year end date, and it will go through the process after you hit enter of creating your year-end closing journal entries. The next process is another area that we modified, the print preliminary trial balance. It's going to show you the ending date for the fiscal year, and this is the part where you say no. In the preliminary process, you answer no to this question. You do not want to finalize. This isn't going to be your final run of the trial balance. So I'm going to say no here, and it's going to do some processes. And that completes the preliminary rollback. So I do want to mention that since you do run preliminary rollback fairly within a couple of days of final rollback, that your stop transfer pump process with e-billing should be turned off during this whole entire time. After you finish preliminary rollback, you're again going to want to verify that everything is correct, and you're going to want to do another backup before you start final rollback processes. So I've brought us up to the point of running final rollback and the final trial balance. I just want to go back and reiterate that before you begin the final rollback year-end processes, that you do need to be sure that you get a good backup. We didn't change anything with the reports, so be careful when you're running the actual reports like the summary trial balance that you do input the correct date to end the report on. And we didn't change anything with the call jobs for the invoice and authorization numbers. You should double check those to be sure that you have entries in all those fields for your next process. So when we run the GAMEN for option 3, which is print preliminary trial balance, again it will display the year ending date, and you'll get your message of, is this your final run? And at this point, yes it is, so we say yes, and it starts and moving your current year GL balances to your prior year GL balances. At this point I am on it's step 3, sub-process 5, where it's asking me about the PO account. We did not hard code this because regional centers may use a different account. If it is determined that all 21 regional centers use this same 80240 expense account, we can hard code this next year. So do be aware that you do have to manually input the year ending date and the operations expense account number here. We also, since that process should only be run once as well, we have put in a stop process that doesn't allow you to do it again. So if I go through and I say yes, I want to run the final trial balance again, now I'm going to get an error message, basically, or informational message that says the process was already run and when it was run. So at this point, you're ready to move on and begin the final rollback process. Final rollback does run in batch mode, so I'll show you where you look for that information in just a second. Again, we have prevented you from having to input the dates for the fiscal year, and those should be presented to you as they have throughout the process as 6/30/16, and it's going to process the fiscal year authorizations for 16. Again, if you input anything other than yes here, it will just exit you out of the program. This is a reminder that after you complete rollback, you should go ahead and run the purge processes, and there is a purge hints and tips document available on the AST website for more information about the various purges. Alright, so this process is now running in batch mode, and you can see that by doing a work active job. And F5. And here is the QBatch, native, and the process. So you can monitor the process here until it completes, and then verify that everything has run successfully. There are a few additional steps that need to be completed after you complete final rollback, so do continue on to those. Don't forget about them. Those start on page 19 of the manual. Please be sure to go over the frequently asked questions part of the manual in Appendix D. We did make one addition this year. We are planning to do final June claim on July 1st. Do I need to change the session date to June 30th to do the claim? Yes, if you're going to run UFIS processes to create your final June claim after June 30th, you should change the session date to June 30th. We hope this video has helped you with the rollover rollback process, and we wish everyone a successful rollover rollback for 2016.